Picture a world before Rome flexed its muscle. The Etruscans were already there. Their civilization stretched between harsh mountains and ancient Italy's fertile plains. They came long before Rome. Their influence ran deep, yet most people barely understand them. Textbooks often cast them as peaceful traders and artists. That portrait conceals something harder. Historical excavations reveal kings with power. Some may have ruled with iron fists. These autocrats helped forge the identity Rome claimed. So why do classrooms push them aside? Etruscan leadership leaves us facing a paradox. History gets rewritten. Triumph and tyranny become threads in a forgotten imperial fabric. The rulers vanish. Their influence remains. Perhaps bricks beneath our feet carry the truth. They tell us how power worked. Modern stories buried lessons. The ground did not. Before Rome rose, the Etruscans built city-states across central Italy. They flourished from the 8th through the 3rd centuries BCE. Their influence reached well beyond their territory. Archaeology offers glimpses of sophisticated urban planning and remarkable metalworking skill. Roads, aqueducts, temples, each already filled the Etruscan imagination. Rome would later refine that infrastructure. Their elites wielded power from swift chariots. Intricate armor signaled martial skill and firm control. Powerful Etruscan families mastered a political balance. They absorbed foreign demands when useful. At other times, they pushed back. They fused artistry with government. Still, stories of their kingly figures suggest harsher rule. It carried opulence and relentless control. So why did history grant them a romantic legacy? The truth remains clouded, much like their uncertain origins. We now dig deeper into those forgotten archives. At their peak, Etruscan city-states achieved striking cultural ingenuity. Tarquinia stood beside Volterra and Veii. Yet their emerging leadership mixed grandeur with fear. Kings called Lucumones ruled cities and claimed their people's souls. Religious ceremonies reinforced their reigns and made authority sacred. Lavish tombs packed with gold and ceremonial portraits still suggest tyrannical splendor and sovereign excess. These monarchs secured allegiance through intricate rituals meant to summon divine favor. Yet unchecked power bred unrest. Urban centers fortified walls while stories spread of conflict and coercion. Every king left the same contradiction. Magnificent temples rose amid whispers of brutal suppression. Were Etruscan rulers agents of civil advancement, or tyrants hiding brutality behind divine favor? Questioning such divisions helps us follow paths now overgrown by time. Roman historians gave us a crooked account of Etruscan rule. Livy and Tacitus mixed history with myth and cautionary tales. Rome cast the Etruscans as a prelude to its own grandeur. Their role as architects of republican ideals slipped from view. Benign portraits may have concealed atrocities. Elsewhere, the record simply breaks. Histories were rewritten. Harder truths vanished. As Rome rose, the Etruscans faded. Their stories became melodrama and moral fable. Recovering these kings demands more than trusting Roman narrators. We must excavate surviving factual relics beside their exaggerated stories. Strip away each mythic layer. The kings leave their pedestals and their fables. What remains is messier and more truthful. Romance still survives. Brutality gets conveniently shelved. Etruscan cities like Cerveteri and Fiesole rose through bold architecture and sophisticated public spaces. Their crowded streets hummed with commerce. Public plazas pulled ordinary citizens into governance. Cultural institutions flourished. That public prosperity concealed the iron grip of Etruscan autocrats. Kings enforced martial values. Taxes climbed relentlessly. Behind all the grandeur stood executioners. Their shadows confirmed the ruler's unyielding control. Architecture became a facade for a society held brutally tight. Ancient Roman writers hinted at something darker. These grand settlements were more than busy centers of trade. They were also epicenters of royal dominance. So why did prosperity leave such sharply conflicting images? Can civilization truly thrive beneath despotism? Or were these accounts polished carefully for posterity? Etruscan territories constantly met neighboring tribes. Greeks joined the contest. Romans eventually did too. These encounters did not always end peacefully. Evidence points to border disputes, power struggles, political schemes that still feel familiar. Records and sagas describe fractured alliances. Kings ruled with iron authority. Yet tensions stalked their courts. Threats rose from within and beyond. Etruscan influence shaped Roman government. Still, stories of Etruscan despots stirring civil disorder darken their legacy. Were those revisions convenient Roman exaggerations? Did Rome need them to excuse its assimilations? Perhaps their uneasy peacemaking roles were reshaped through storytelling. They offered lessons for an ancient empire seeking supremacy. Reassessing these entanglements means picking through stubborn truths. From their shadows rise monumental tyrants. Tarquinius Superbus towers over myth and reality alike. Rome remembers its final king as a villain. It rarely treats him as a sovereign worth celebrating. Stories of Etruscan control swell into legend under him. Other accounts follow Tarquinius Priscus and Servius Tullius. Together they expose fragments of a strange age. Peaceful progress lived beside naked tyranny. These rulers also embraced extravagance and authority kept apart. They practiced diplomacy built on manipulation. Such details confront every student of history. Can truth untangle contradictions preserved by archaeology and runaway folklore? We search these buried legacies for a resolution. None arrives. Instead, the trail leads into history's unresolved mysteries. Religion and political authority stood at the heart of Etruscan life. High priests and kings often occupied both roles. Ceremony and sovereign power shared one face. Sacred rites claimed to predict future events. They also tightened the grip of hierarchy. Elaborate sacrifices gave that controlled divine sanction. Intricate temples and celestial observatories turned rule into sacred law. The gods seemed to stand behind every judgment. Religious art and statues remain witnesses to those practices. They show how this civilization fortified power with divinity. That bond between faith and government leaves an awkward question. Were these rites spiritual necessities or calculated political maneuvers? Pull apart those braided strands of power and piety. The bare skeleton of Etruscan sovereignty begins to emerge. The 4th century BCE brought a hard turn. Rome's growing influence steadily eroded Etruscan dominance. Their cultural peak receded into decline. Open conquest rarely drove this collapse. Alliances shifted. Etruscan communities gradually entered Roman political systems. Yet stubborn remnants record their continued presence. Etruscan marks remain stitched through Roman culture. Why did that legacy unravel almost without notice? Perhaps the Etruscans simply failed to unite against Rome's rising power. Understanding these linked changes demands care. We must reconstruct a civilization's transformation. Pristine glory met unavoidable integration. Mighty sovereigns became absorbed citizens. That descent captures history's ruthless cycle. Empires fall, legacies change. One people's extinction feeds the flame of another new empire. Archaeology offers glimpses into Etruscan life: jewelry, ceramics, bronzes. Murals pulled from the earth still blaze with artistry. These objects tell of creativity surviving under rigid social constraints. Their craftsmanship is exquisite, yet each piece carries tension between free expression and imposed control. Archaeologists keep wrestling with the same stubborn question: did tyranny provoke innovation and magnificent art, or did it choke both? Museum displays now place these works before modern eyes. Understanding them requires facing two truths: the brilliance is real, so is the coercion built into sovereign power. Their message reaches beyond beauty. It exposes the political landscape that shaped culture beneath an autocrat's watch. Etruscan innovations flowed straight into Roman government. The institutional bloodline is clear. Rome absorbed their architecture. It adopted legal systems and borrowed symbols of power. Even the curule chair has Etruscan roots. Etruscan kings built foundations where the Roman Republic later flourished. That influence matters. Romans lived with an awkward duality. They kept Etruscan institutions while rejecting their supposed tyranny. Acknowledging this debt disrupts neat stories of Roman superiority. Systems still cherished today came from sources now obscure. Modern society admires Roman structures, yet honest history demands credit for the deeper origins. Perhaps the tension appears only when history's disputes are exposed. Etruscan scholars pull a lost civilization back into view. They assemble historical puzzles around royal narratives and reluctant reconciliations. Primary sources are scarce. They compare rival accounts and artistic clues. They also excavate fresh archaeological layers. Each fragment adds depth. Some expose new complexities. Others unsettle scholarship that once seemed secure. Their work straddles past and present. It reconnects us with enigmatic figures inside fragile interpretations. Sometimes historians speak truth to power. They reset stories buried beneath myths written by victors. The commitment endures. They separate genuine risks from rebirths invented later. They merge Etruscan royalty into collective memory. Old biases demand creative grit. History informs foresight. Etruscan influence passed intact into wider culture. Their myths and lore seeded legends. Tages was one such figure. This mythical oracle sprang from plowed earth. He embodied wisdom bursting suddenly from darkness. Other tales were carved into pottery and endured like clay. Literary portraits echoed historical retellings. Personified figures preserved royal legacies without written records. Oral histories joined mythic motifs and symbolic tales. Together, they show Etruscan identity inhabiting imagined worlds after political eclipse. Novelists and playwrights later recast these stories. Each retelling renewed their historical weight. It invited respect and sustained cultural interplay. Why did Etruscan legacy dissolve? Why did its consequences leave only faint lines? Those questions force reflection. Historians confront frameworks sidelining weaker narratives and protecting entrenched doctrines. Breaking hardened power structures reveals suppressed voices. Historical debate gains rich and complex layers. Looking beyond convention exposes truths long buried. They sharpen modern insights into autocracy's tangled machinery. Our quest recasts myths that diminish ancient authority. Sophisticated coalitions forged Western dominion itself. Untangling Etruscan governance reshapes readers. It broadens their grasp of morality. It clarifies leadership theories and social structures. Those forces drove transformation, still shaping modernity's complicated story. Why do relics still whisper beneath plowed fields? They survived the crushing weight of empires. We share a duty to revive Etruscan legacies buried by historical amnesia. Their shared story belongs inside humanity's tangled continuum. Tyrannies exposed or denied reveal inconvenient truths about how societies are built. Those lessons demand suspicion toward dominant accounts and retrospective positivist bias. Archaeologists recover forgotten splendor from the soil. Kings find their voices again. Even shattered echoes carry force. They reconnect patterns that anchor civilization's ambitions within Etruscan foundations. Remembering those forgotten rulers is essential. It reshapes modern arguments about identity and the stubborn complexity surrounding it.